I'm Will and I'm the head gardener at Forbidden Fruit Veg. So I started farming about 8 years ago now. Initially while I was halfway through doing a PhD at the University of Bristol, so I was researching rainfall using Met Office radars, and I was starting to find that a bit boring, but also I was just constantly inside during winter. I'd be going to the office at 8 in the morning and then the sun would be up at 8:30, and I'd spend the whole of the daylight hours indoors with artificial lighting. It means you don't sleep very well if you've not used your body physically during the day, and if you're just kind of mentally there, it doesn't really work. And so I started to look into other ways that I could work that would be better for both me but also the environment collectively. So after finding out about farming as another way of life, I got into it through woofing. I volunteered at a few farms in England, and then from there went off into Spain and to France and to other countries, seeing different bits of Europe and how they farmed. And then came back to England and did a traineeship at Tolhurst Organics and then an apprenticeship at Sutton in south of London. From there, I went on with my partner to try and set up a farm in Cornwall on a bit of land that we could rent for free, and it seemed like a very good opportunity. We had a market to sell to, but it's a very seasonal market where there's a lot of tourists and a lot of people with second homes. Because of those second homes, it's very expensive to try and live there, which is often the case in the countryside nowadays, where there is very little accommodation on an offer, and what is incredibly expensive to buy, and there's usually very little rental accommodation. And when you're trying to set up a farm, you're often putting your own money in and not getting anything back. So for that first year, we made enough to pay off the initial cost of the farm, but not anything at all for our wages, even though we put in long hour days for many days a week. It's a struggle to make it work as a kind of a new entrant farmer. So after that, I came here 3 years ago. This had the benefit of being paid employment. At the time, the farm wasn't bringing in much money. It was still at very early stages, so it had only really been going as a commercial setup for the year before, and even only really toward the end of that year. So those initial phases are very tricky periods where you can be quite reliant on unpaid labour. So we're set up with Woof as an organisation, which are incredible, and everyone that comes here is always very happy to be here. They learn a lot from it. Woof is called Willing Workers on Organic Farms, and they are a voluntary charity that links people looking for a way to help out farmers or to just experience life in the countryside, to get out of the cities or towns and to kind of experience a different way of life that's not kind of being in an office surrounded by pollution. So it's a really beneficial thing for both sides. In exchange, so we kind of teach them. I make sure to be patient and explain enough around the farm, so it's a teaching thing. We completely feed them completely organic food, and they get to live in the house with us. Everyone has their own room. They work with us together in a garden, doing about 6 hours of work a day for 4 days a week. The jobs that they're doing are very mixed through the day, so there's harvesting and seed sowing, seed saving, and kind of preserving some of the harvests for winter. As I've been here with the help of Tim as the assistant grower, and he's spent now 3 years here as well, we've managed to turn it into a place that is getting toward being commercially viable. We're producing a much bigger income from selling the vegetables, but it's still very difficult to make it profitable because there's just so many overhead costs of insurance for the car and the farm, and there's all the seeds, the compost. Even saving our own seeds is only a proportion of what we can do. It's very difficult to grow all of your own seeds, and seed sowing compost is a different thing to our homegrown compost. And so there's a lot of factors that make it very difficult to work on this small scale, and so this is where it often involves unpaid or very cheap labour. And so it's very rare for farmers to be paid more than the minimum wage at the best. And so really there needs to be more government subsidies going to small scale farms. There needs to be a lot more help, but also if there aren't subsidies, veg prices and food prices kind of need to go up in order to pay for the amount of labour that is needed to run a farm like this. And so the government really needs to be subsidising operations like this more because they provide such a wide range of benefits. We're not just feeding the local areas, so we do markets in 3 local villages near us and also sell to shops in Bristol and veg boxes locally for collection and a bit of delivery. Also, we offer volunteer opportunities, so we are teaching people how to farm and how to look after themselves through healthy food and a different way of living. We are also massively helping with biodiversity, so there's a lot more birds and different insects in our garden because we have the diversity of plant species and diversity of flowers and different sorts of nectar. In the compost we have grass snakes and they always lay their eggs in there every year, and we see them out in the garden during the rest of the year. We have also hedgehogs in the garden, and you always see kestrels and buzzards and sparrowhawks around, and so we have this diversity that you don't get to the same extent from monoculture crops. So whereas the government is currently giving some subsidies to farms with massive acreages who are spraying their fields with glyphosate, we don't get that for some reason, even though we're having all of these benefits. We are benefiting the economy. If we're providing food that is healthy, then we're reducing the need for people to go to hospitals, so reducing healthcare costs. So we are kind of subsidising it through our own labour really, whereas the government should really be helping us with that.